Coors Light. Choose chill. Celebrate responsibly.
Rolling to his left, sets up, going deep, and he's got him. Ja'Cory Moore with a catch. Inside on his feet at the 15. Are you kidding me? Touchdown!
We're getting you ready for today's game between the Oregon Ducks and the Northwestern Wildcats. Oregon Ducks football on the Fan is brought to you by Coors Light, Vic Hanna Dealerships, Philbrook Law, Zoom Care, Bellagio's Pizza, Langdon Farms Golf Club, Wilsonville Toyota, Mountaintop Metal Roofing, Victor Rico's Mexican Food, Legends Casino Hotel, Mods PDX, and Laurelhurst Market Steakhouse and Butcher Shop.
Touchdown, Oregon!
Now here's your host, Andy Johnson, on the Fan Sports Network, 105.1, 1080, and the Odyssey app.
Hey, what's happening, everybody? Welcome in. Happy Oregon Ducks game day to you bright and early on a Saturday morning. I'm your host, Andy Johnson. The pregame show, of course, brought to you by Frost Brewed Coors Light, the world's most refreshing beer. A short, truncated version of the pregame show here today. Oregon Northwestern coming up. The Ducks playing their first Big Noon kickoff game since joining the conference. They famously played on the Big Nooner a couple of years back, and Mario Cristobal went into Columbus and got a win. And so Oregon looking to improve their Big Noon record to 2-0 today as they take on Northwestern. We got so much to get to over the next hour of the show. No Dusty Hara, no Anthony Newman this morning. Anthony was coaching high school football late last night. We didn't want to make him wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning. And so he will be on the postgame show coming up here this afternoon. And Dusty Hara, of course, on the road with the team. And you're going to hear from him, Jerry Jorge, and the guys in 1 hour. So we're about 3 hours away here from kickoff between Oregon and Northwestern. We always like to start the show with a bit of a look back at last week. And we'll do that before we get to our Victor Rico's breakdown of today's game. Because, I mean, I could go on for 4 hours on this game and the way that Oregon looked. I've been following the program. I went to Oregon. I covered Oregon for a very long time. It is hard for me to think of a game that was such a resounding ass whooping, if you will, as to what we saw last week at Autzen Stadium. They've had games against FCS teams, heck, even the week before against Montana State. That was a thorough butt whooping. But considering a Power 4 opponent was coming to town, Oklahoma State, and upping the level of competition in terms of size, strength, athleticism, 69-3 against a Power 4 opponent. I don't care how bad you are. I don't care how much that thing is hit the side of a mountain. This team right now is eating out of the palm of Dan Lanning's hand. They are buying what he is selling to them, getting them motivated and ready to play. And whether it's fair, foul, it depends on what side of the argument you're on. They clearly took what Mike Gundy said last week to heart, and they wanted to send a message. And boy, oh boy, did they send that message. Just dominant in every phase of the game. I do want to single out two things, and we could talk to Jorge, who, by the way, will be on the show here in a little bit. About this, and I think it's the biggest takeaway for me for the first 2 weeks of the season for the Ducks. This is a team that came in with a couple of question marks, and I think the two biggest ones were wide receiver. You lose Tez, you lose Trayshawn Holden. Evan Stewart goes down for who knows how long, hopefully back at some point this year. What is that group going to look like? And then, you're going from one of the most experienced quarterbacks in the history of college football, or the most experienced quarterback in the history of college football, to the next most experienced quarterback in the history of college football, from Bo Nix to Dylan Gabriel. And you're handing the reins to a guy in Dante Moore who's only made 5 starts. And so I understood why they were questions. I never really questioned the floor. I always thought the floor was pretty high considering the quality of players that they have, both in Dante Moore and the wide receiver room. But I think the question was, what could the ceiling be for those two groups? And if Oregon doesn't have the year that maybe some thought or hope that they could have, could those be the groups that hold them back? And I will say through 2 weeks. Now, the caveat on all this, they got to go prove it against a stiffer level of competition, and they'll get that chance here in a couple of weeks at Penn State. Wide receiver room has looked outstanding, and that was the case against Montana State. They had a bunch of different guys making plays. Some of the biggest highlights of that game are wide receivers blocking downfield. They're clearly playing hard. They're playing tough, and you got different variations of guys. Malik Benson being a deep threat. We finally saw that shot down the field last week against Oklahoma State. You saw Ja'Cory Moore making a play down the field early on in that game. He also had a fly sweep that he took in for a touchdown, becoming the first true freshman at Oregon to score a receiving touchdown and a rushing touchdown in the same game since DeAnthony Thomas. And I think Oregon is going to design packages for him very similar to what Chip did back in the day with DeAnthony Thomas. And so you have these wide receivers that are now making plays. Gary Bryant's a vet. We knew he was going to come in solid. And so that is a group that I think has stood out to me here through the first 2 games of the season. And then Dante Moore is a guy that people wanted to use kind of as a punching bag. He wasn't very good as a freshman. Not many true freshmen are very good, and he was in a bad situation. He made the right call to come to Oregon to sit for a year to learn the offense, and you have a guy who seemingly is in control of everything going on at the line of scrimmage, changing protections, calling hot routes, audibles at the line if he doesn't like a certain look that a defense is giving him, and the arm talent, man. That's the thing. Everybody was raving about the arm talent coming in, and you heard about it in practice, and Yogi Roth was on with Sprague and I a couple weeks ago going into the year saying this guy's got a chance to be the best of all of them that we've seen over the last handful of years at Oregon. And man, through 2 games has he looked the part. He seems confident, in control. The deep ball is beautiful. The effortless throw to Malik Benson just on a dot, on a rope, about 50 yards away, an incredible throw. And so Dante Moore showing that arm talent that had a lot of people drooling, and he has looked fantastic through 2 games. And that gets into our breakdown, which is, of course, brought to you by Victor Rico's for today's game. And I think, the fun challenge for Oregon in this one, look, let's call a spade a spade. Northwestern's not a very good football team. They went on the road to Tulane in week 1. Didn't look great. They couldn't score an offensive touchdown. They came back and beat the Baylor School for the Blind last week. This is not a very good football team. It's a game that Oregon is a 4-touchdown favorite once again going into this one. The challenge that I think you're looking for is just, one, could you bring your own juice? That's been the theme of the week for the Ducks. You don't have Autzen Stadium behind you. It's not a normal road environment in terms of a stadium that's going to be packed with 70, 80, 60,000 people that you're going to get the next time you go on the road when you go to Penn State. But it's a great dress rehearsal for that game. And you're going to have to bring your own juice because there's only about 12,000 capacity in this crowd. And I'd imagine there's going to be a lot of Duck fans there this morning who made the trip out to Chicago and are looking to root on the Ducks right next to the lake. And so a beautiful setting. But the first time we get to see this team on the road, I'm excited to see how they face that challenge. I'm excited to see how they handle it. And then also, just can you continue this? Can you keep blowing teams out the way that we think that you should? Because no matter how good or bad you are, look around college football for some of the better teams in the country. There's been a bit of a lackadaisical letdown effort. You had Georgia, Austin Peay last week. LSU didn't look great against an inferior opponent. Clemson, obviously. Now, some of these teams are coming off of big games, and there's a letdown spot that's pretty obvious to spot. But it's impressive if you continue to see a team come out, announce their presence with authority to steal a line from Bull Durham, and come out and do what you're supposed to do with an inferior opponent. So that is what Northwestern is. Can Oregon continue this run of dominating teams? We'll continue to talk about the game and preview it. Kickoff coming up less than 3 hours from now. We're just getting started today. Let me set the scene a little bit for you on what's going to happen and what things will look like coming up the rest of the show. The breakdown, obviously brought to you by Victor Rico's. They break down your game day meals with catering and the ease of the Victor Rico's app. When you think of flavor, think of Victor Rico's. Coming up next, you're going to hear from Isaac and Suk. They didn't have Dan Lanning on this week because of the travel schedule and Oregon having to leave a little bit earlier. Usually comes on Thursdays. The team left on Thursday, and so they didn't have the opportunity to talk to him, but they did highlight his fiery pregame speech that went viral leading into the Oklahoma State game. So you hear from those guys here in a moment. We'll get to the injury report, which thankfully Oregon appears to be relatively healthy at this point in the season. You're going to hear from Joey Harrington, who joins Isaac and Suk every single Friday. His thoughts on the start and the game today. We'll get to our keys to the game, and then, of course, Mike Jorgensen, the color analyst of the Oregon Ducks, will hop on later on as we wrap things up here. A quick 1-hour version of a pregame show. We're off and running live on a Saturday. Happy college football Saturday. Hope you're up enjoying some coffee, eating a breakfast burrito, whatever you want, hopefully from Victor Rico's, and we're just getting started. Let's start diving into some other things in a bit. But next, hear from Isaac and Suk and their conversation about Dan Lanning's fiery pregame speech going into the Oklahoma State game. That is coming up next. You got the Ducks pregame show live on 105.1 FM The Fan. But now it is time for Ducks Game Day weather every 10 minutes. Here's Jeff Rust.
It is 58 degrees, mostly cloudy here in Portland. Clouds will burn off later this morning. Sunny skies today, a high around 80. In Evanston, some early thunderstorms should end. Look for cloudy skies, about 70 degrees at kickoff, and an 11 to 12 mile an hour breeze off of Lake Michigan. I'm Jeff Rust, Ducks Game Day weather every 10 minutes.
At Dick Hanna, we know that buying a car can feel like
Ducks Game Day on the Fan Sports Network, 105.1, 1080, and the Odyssey app.
I am guessing this is directly from Leviticus. Because, dude, Dan Lanning's got it. Here was his pregame speech, or part of it, against pre-Oklahoma State.
Let it rip. The great thing about us is we don't need any extra motivation to come in and want to whoop your ass. But it sure does help when your opponent pours a little gasoline on you. And they poured a little gasoline. The great thing about this game is what they think versus what I know. I know about this team's work. I know about this team's sacrifice. I know about this team's connection. Right? That's going to be a separator in this game. Because if you're going to come in and you're going to be talking shit, it's time to cowboy up. But guess what? The Bull don't care. And today, we're the Bull. Let's go with their ass.
Yes,
let's go.
Thank God, I want to go outside and run.
I have goosebumps right now.
Sprint down the street.
I will. When this has been documented in the 20 years we've been together,
Naked.
no one is harder to motivate than me. I hate pregame speeches. They're stupid. I've never had a good one in all the years I've played. No offense, but Lavelle Edwards was the world's worst pregame speech guy of all time. If anything, he made me less fired up. I find him corny, and just please don't. That, oh my God, that's even me. I'm like, yes, it's time to cowboy up, but the Bull don't care.
I'm going to play it again. Now listen closely to what he says here. Because again, this is all based off of Gundy saying, oh, they spent $40 million, and how we going to compete with that? We can't compete with that. Here's what, so listen close.
That's so
Let it rip. The great thing about us is we don't need any extra motivation to come in and want to whoop your ass. But it sure does help when your opponent pours a little gasoline on you. And they poured a little gasoline. The great thing about this game is what they think versus what I know. I know about this team's work. I know about this team's sacrifice. I know about this team's connection. Right? That's going to be a separator in this game. Because if you're going to come in and you're going to be talking shit, it's time to cowboy up. But guess what? The Bull don't care. And today, we're the Bull. Let's go whoop their ass.
Dude, the best part of that is, let's go whoop their ass.
right?
Dan Lanning's got it.
Ray Lewis was this way. If you ever listen to any Ray Lewis's stuff, he had a knack for it. And Lanning does. Like, he's good at it. He is really, really good at it. And just even the inflection in which he, like, you're right. Like, it starts off with the, if you're going to be talking ass, let's go with their ass. Look, he's got some good ones. And I don't know if this is recency bias, but that is my favorite one. That's one that if I was in the locker room, I'd be like, all right, you got me. I may be a cynical bastard, but let's go.
Dan Lanning on Primetime, brought to you by Philbrook Law. Other lawyers fight for clicks. Philbrook Law fights for wins. Philbrook Law, accident and injury lawyers, your local law team. It is 58, mostly cloudy here in Portland. Clouds will burn off later this morning. Sunny skies today, a high around 80. In Evanston, some early thunderstorms should end. Look for cloudy skies around 70 degrees at kickoff and 11 to 12 mile an hour breeze off of Lake Michigan. I'm Jeff Rust with Ducks Game Day weather every 10 minutes.
Who's in, who's out? This is the Injury Report, brought to you by Zoom Care, with clinics near you. Zoom Care offers same-day appointments when you need them, even on evenings and weekends. Insurance accepted, including Medicare. ZoomCare.com.
Yeah, I'm not going to talk about injuries.
Coors Light presents Ducks Game Day on the Fan Sports Network, 105.1, 1080, and the Odyssey app.
All right, time for the Injury Report as we continue on here. Ducks pregame show. Andy Dirk Johnson with you bright and early on a Saturday morning. And you take a look at the injuries. We don't get a lot of information from Oregon, but we'll tell you what we do know going into the game. Before we get to that, I did want to mention an injury on the other side of this matchup here this morning. Northwestern coming in, already some would argue, with a hand time behind their back. Cam Porter, who has been their leading rusher each of the last two full seasons. He's their starting running back coming into the year. He is out for the remainder of the 2025 season. Northwestern head coach David Braun announced that earlier this week. And so he had 137 yards, I believe, through their first two games, went down with an injury, and he will miss the rest of the year. And so a brutal blow, a guy that they love there at Northwestern. And he's been a great locker room glue guy through some transition years for Northwestern over the last 2 years. So Oregon getting a bit of a benefit there. Let's go to the other side of it for Oregon and look at the injury report for the Ducks. Some of the knowns, obviously, Trey McNutt, he might be done for the year, unfortunately. And you look at the way these young guys are playing in the secondary, man, that one stings because he was, reportedly looking very good in camp and playing at a high level, and he would have definitely gotten a decent amount of snaps here early in the season. But the broken leg late in camp, it's a brutal blow for him. He's obviously still out. Dylan Gresham, who was seen on the sideline of the Montana State game with a neck brace on, likely still to be out. And then Evan Stewart, obviously, who's down for a while, hopefully back at some point later on this season. A few of the guys that we kind of have circle going in, Austin Novosad was a surprise one last week when the Ducks decided to pull their starters on offense and bring in some reserves. Luke Moga was the first quarterback off the bench for the Ducks and played a number of series before Brock Thomas got in the game late. Novosad questionable. It sounds like Lanning said this week he was dealing with a lat issue. So if this game does get out of hand and Oregon is able to go to a backup quarterback, we'll wait and see if that ends up being Austin Novosad or if Luke Moga ends up getting those starts as well. Oregon's offensive line has had to rotate guys here early in the season, which is a really good sign for them long term, considering you got to have that flexibility and positional flexibility for guys up front. Kawika Rogers got hurt in the first game, did not play in week 2. We'll see if he's back this week. He's estimated to be questionable going into this matchup today against Northwestern. And then a handful of guys on defense, 2 of which I'm kind of circling. Theron Johnson being one of them. This is his former team in Northwestern. He transferred an all Big Ten selection last year. He's been one of the bright spots for this football program, so he's got a chance to go back and play against his former team. He has been banged up here early on in the season. Oregon has not needed him. It might be a cautionary thing of let's hold him out until we got stiffer competition and make sure he's back to 100% full strength, or maybe there's a push. Maybe this guy really wants to play against his former team. So we'll see if we get that from Theron Johnson today. The secondary for Oregon has been outstanding, and we'll see if that's a body that is back in the mix here. And then a couple of linebackers in Dylan Williams and Braden Platt, a couple of guys who banged up here early on in the season for the Ducks. Williams has not played in either game early on this season. Oregon has not talked about what the injury is, so we'll have to wait and see if he's back. And then Braden Platt also not playing in either game, and he has been hopefully back. Hopefully will be back today, because those guys came up with a lot of promise and excited to see what they look like at the linebacker room that is playing at a high level here early on in the year, but you might be able to add some more depth to it. So some of the guys we're keeping our eye on here this morning to see if they will be able to play and if they're able to get some snaps. I think one of the most encouraging things about Oregon here early in the year has been, just obviously the way the team is playing is great, and the way that they're dominating folks is exactly what you want to see right out of the gate, but it's also the number of guys that they played. These numbers are off the top of my head, so I might be a little off, but I think I remember Dan Lanning saying in week 1 against Montana State, they played 77 guys, and in week 2, the number was over 80 against Oklahoma State, something like 81 players that got into the game. They had, 30-plus guys with tackles, 20 guys touched the football. You had 9 different players score a touchdown in the game last weekend, and so this is a team that can come at you in waves, and the depth, I think, has been better than it has ever been in Eugene, Oregon. And that is a testament to the job the recruiting staff has done and the roster that they have put together here. It's been a lot of fun to see these young guys have big impacts right away in their college careers, and we'll see if we can add a few more to the list of guys who have missed some time here early on in the season. The injury report brought to you by, as always, Zoom Care. With more than 20 neighborhood clinics in Oregon and Southwest Washington, Zoom Care offers convenient access to same-day urgent and emergency care, plus an expanded primary care team currently accepting new patients. Schedule or learn more at zoomcare.com. You're going to hear from Joey Harrington coming up next. What are his thoughts on the start for the Ducks and what they're going to do today here at Northwestern? Joey Harrington joins Isaac and Suk every single Friday. That is up next. And then after Joey, we'll get to our keys to the game. What does Oregon need to do today in order to get a win? Keys to the game right around the corner. Joey Harrington next. We're off and running here bright and early on a Saturday morning. Thanks for being with us. You got the Ducks pregame show on 105.1 FM, The Fan, and the Fan Sports Network.
Duck fans, game day is here, and you need fuel to cheer on Oregon. Hey, it's Dusty, and at Victorico's Mexican Food, we know the game doesn't wait, so neither should you. Swing by before kickoff for mouth-watering burritos, tacos, quesadillas, and more. All served up fast and with the quality you crave. Whether you're tailgating or watching from home, Victorico's has you covered. Get in, get out, and get back to the action. Fueling Duck fans with restaurant-quality food, ready in no time. Pick up in-store or order for takeout or delivery at victoricos.com.
We all hear the radio ads about the IRS. They tell you to be afraid, to be scared, and they try to frighten you into calling. I'm not here to do that. Tax Relief Advocates is different. TRA is here to tell you that if you owe money to the IRS, whether it's $5,000, $50,000, or $500,000, we have a solution. It doesn't matter if you're sitting in your car, at work, or with your kids. No matter where you are, call now. 800-507-9701. Don't lose hope. TRA can eliminate or reduce what you owe to the IRS. Generous programs are now available that can give you a fresh start. Our passion is taxes and helping individuals fix their IRS problems. We have over 1,000 5-star reviews on Google and an A+ with the Better Business Bureau. You don't need to be afraid of the IRS any longer. End your tax nightmare today by visiting us online at TRA.com or call 800-507-9701. That's 800-507-9701. Tax Relief Advocates. Real solutions for real people.
Looking for an unforgettable escape? Discover Legends Casino Hotel in Toppenish, Washington, where excitement meets luxury. Play your favorite slots and table games. Enjoy delicious dining and unwind in our elegant hotel rooms. Relax and rejuvenate at our indoor pool and full-service day spa, featuring state-of-the-art wellness pods. With thrilling promotions and premier live entertainment, Legends Casino Hotel is the ultimate Northwest destination for fun and relaxation. Visit legendscasino.com to book your stay. Legends Casino Hotel, within winning distance.
Let's preview the game with a Ducks legend.
Wait for it. Dairy.
Captain Comeback, Joey Harrington, from his weekly visit every Friday on Primetime.
I would call myself somebody who's been around for a long time and wants to tell some nice stories.
Brought to you by Mods PDX. The future of building is here.
Touchdown, Oregon.
Coors Light presents Ducks Game Day on the Fan Sports Network, 105.1, 1080, and the Odyssey app.
Is there a worry meter on this game? I know there are 4 touchdown favorites again, but, this is a better, it's a Big Ten opponent. It's on the road. What do you think?
I'm flying home, if that tells you anything.
You don't even care to stay and see it?
Yeah, like it to me, it's not even worth staying to see the game. I'll watch it on TV, and I'm literally in the city right now, and it's like,
Okay.
I have absolutely none. My only worry is what's the score going to be at halftime, and am I going to have to find something else to do for? I don't know. It's.
Are we going to learn anything tomorrow? Anything to watch?
I would like to see the continued development of Dante and Decorian. Mm-hmm. I would really. That's what I'm watching for, right? Number one, when we talked about this a couple weeks ago, what I was watching for, we'd talked about how incredibly efficient. I mean, we were so spoiled having 2 years of Bo Nix and then Dylan Gabriel, who were. I mean, you go look at the stats. I'm sure they're both top 10 in career completion percentage. I mean, it was literally every time they threw the ball, it was completed somewhere. It was so almost robotic. And not that Dante Moore was going to be a poor quarterback, but I definitely was looking or expected to see a little bit less efficiency, maybe a few more explosive plays, a few more shots, some maybe immature or, hey, I'm just going to chuck it kind of moments. That was what I was looking for from him. And what I've seen over the last couple of weeks has been very, I'm not going to say clinical yet, because the opponents haven't been up to par, but I've been very impressed. And not only have I been impressed with him, but I've been impressed the way that he's used Decorian and the game that he had last week. God, what a perfect strike up the sideline, great route. I want to see that continue, right? Because that's the thing that's been missing from Oregon for ever. Literally forever. Have we had a first round pick at wide receiver?
I'm trying to think.
That's a good question.
If they have.
I can't think of one off the top of my head.
No, not off the top of my head.
I don't think Oregon has ever had a first round wide receiver. And not that, we need to go ahead and anoint Decorian Moore, but that's what Ohio State did to us in the Rose Bowl last year.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Joey.
Bye.
Joey Harrington, courtesy of Mods PDX. The future of building is here.
It is 58, mostly cloudy here in Portland. Clouds will burn off later this morning. Sunny skies today, a high around 80. In Evanston, early thunderstorms should end. Look for cloudy skies around 70 degrees at kickoff and 11 to 12 mile-an-hour breeze off of Lake Michigan. I'm Jeff Russ with Ducks Game Day weather every 10 minutes.
Most people think lawyers just talk. At Philbrook
Back with you, getting set. Oregon and Northwestern coming up in a couple of hours. Game 3 for the Ducks this year, looking for a 3-0 start. Keys to the game, the first one is pretty easy for me in terms of something to pick out, and that would be a theme that the players have talked about if you've seen some of their media availability leading into this game, and that theme is bring your own juice. We'll talk to Jorgie here in a moment, and I'm curious to get his thoughts on kind of what the scene looks like and what the setting looks like because he's getting ready to call the game here, but this is not a normal atmosphere. You're not playing in a normal road stadium that's 50, 60,000. The next time Oregon goes on the road, it will be for a whiteout game at Penn State in front of 100,000 people. And in this morning's game against Northwestern, there's maybe 12,000, 13,000 people there. And the grandstands on the sidelines look like they're high school grandstands. In fact, there's probably a lot of high school stadiums who have bigger sideline grandstands. And so it's a very unique setting for Oregon, and it's an early start time. And so you add those kind of two things together. My key number one for Oregon is to bring the juice. You got to bring your own energy. There's not an Autzen crowd behind you. You're not running into a Coliseum-like stadium, if you will, in front of 100,000 people to try and shut everybody up. This can be a bit of a sleepy atmosphere because there's not as much noise, there's not as much energy. And so Oregon is a team that has come out the last 2 weeks and just started like their hair is on fire. You look at the opening drive last week against Oklahoma State, second play, touchdown. You look at the first drive against Montana State 2 weeks ago, and the opening play of the game is a, 40-yard gain for Noah Whittington. And so they have jumped on teams and they've brought energy early on. It's a lot more challenging to do when you don't have 65,000 people behind you at Autzen Stadium. And so that is key number one for me is bring the energy, bring the juice, and make sure you get off to a fast start considering the early start time and kind of put any of that concern out of the way. Key number two for me, now I'm going to get super nitpicky. I'm going to go full Dan Lanning here on this Keys to the Game segment because there's not a lot of things that you can criticize for Oregon through 2 weeks. They've been as dominant and played nearly flawless football through 8 quarters. And I'm sure Lanning would sit down and nitpick, 30 different things that he could think that they could clean up. The only one that stood out to me against Oklahoma State last weekend, and it's something that when you go on the road, I'm just curious. Again, the crowd noise won't be a factor here, but the communication pre-snap, making sure you're lined up correctly. There were some false start penalties. There were some alignment issues, some illegal motions, illegal formations, just some of that pre-snap stuff that you can clean up. Anything that you can do to take away an advantage for a team who's playing in their own stadium is great. And anything you do to shoot yourself in the foot and make it, instead of 2nd and 7, it's 2nd and 12 all of a sudden because of a 5-yard penalty. That first down becomes a little more challenging to get. So clean up some of that stuff. That's exactly what I would like to see. And then outside of that, I think the biggest strength that this offense has had, and you could say, well, they've scored, nearly 60 points in both games and nearly 70 in game number 2. The biggest strength that this offense has had through 2 games is no turnovers. They are not putting the ball in harm's way. No fumbles, no interceptions. They've done a tremendous job. I shouldn't say they did fumble one punt against Montana State and went out of bounds. Gary Bryant was lucky on that one. But in terms of the offense, I'm trying to think off the top of my head. Maybe you guys can come up with one. I can't think of a single ball that Dante Moore has thrown that has gone into harm's way. And so when you're going on the road, I'm just curious to see how the team handles that environment, being away from their own locker room in their own stadium for the first time. And does Dante Moore continue to play clean football? This team has reached the point, they've looked so good through the first 2 weeks that you're almost just trying to find things to either continue to improve on or build on or fine-tune because you're going to have a showdown game here in a couple of weeks at the end of the month on the road at Penn State. And so turning the ball over is something that could lose you that game, and you never want that to be a problem that you have going into a game like that. And so Oregon's done a tremendous job of that through the first 2 weeks of the season. Dante Moore has been tremendous protecting the ball, and so that's something that I just continue. It's a key for me of bring your juice, making sure you're ready to go for a 9 a.m. start time. That's never early to get out of bed and go play, although they do practice early in the morning, and they've talked about that throughout the course of the week, cleaning up some of the penalty stuff on offense, and then also not putting the ball in harm's way and making sure you're protecting the football, because turnovers are something that can swing a game like this and give a team like Northwestern hope. If Oregon comes out and plays their game and doesn't do anything to hurt themselves, this game will be likely over at the end of the first quarter. And so don't allow your opponent any opportunity for life, and you'll be okay on the road at Northwestern. Man, we are flying through this thing. Only a couple of segments left for us. Kickoff coming up pretty soon between Oregon and Northwestern, bright and early on this Saturday morning. Thanks, everybody, for waking up and tuning in. Those were your keys to the game. Driven by Wilsonville Toyota, simplifying the buying process of one person, one price. No bull, WilsonvilleToyota.com. Mike Jorgensen, the color analyst of the Oregon Ducks. He's going to set the scene. What's the stadium look like? How's everybody feeling? What are the keys for Mike Jorgensen going into this game? We'll talk to Jorgie. That is coming up next, but now it's time for Ducks Game Day weather every 10 minutes. Here's Jeff Rust.
58, mostly cloudy here in Portland. Clouds will burn off later this morning. Sunny skies today, a high around 80. In Evanston, Illinois, some early thunderstorms should end. Look for cloudy skies around 70 degrees at kickoff and 11 to 12 mile an hour breeze off of Lake Michigan. I'm Jeff Rust with Ducks Game Day weather every 10 minutes.
It's time for the inside look at the Ducks and today's matchup. Ask Jorgie. Brought to you by Bellagio's Pizza, the very best.
We think that there's some alphas on our team, but nobody else right now does, and so that's the type of thing that you're going to have to prove.
With Ducks color analyst and former quarterback Mike Jorgensen, Coors Light presents Ducks Game Day on the Fan Sports Network, 105.1 1080, and the Odyssey app.
All right, time to ask Jorgie. Let's talk to the color analyst of the Oregon Ducks, getting set for kickoff here. Oregon and Northwestern right around the corner, and the Ducks off to a 2-0 start, looking to make it 3-0. Jorgie, first off, good morning. Set the picture for me of what this stadium looks like. I've seen pictures online. Almost looks like a high school stadium next to a beautiful body of water. Set the scene. What are we looking like out there?
It is. It looks like a glorified high school stadium. I mean, they've fixed it up nice at each of the end zones. On both sides of the field, the way the benches are set up, kind of a double scoreboard look as we look to Lake Michigan, and the view of Lake Michigan from where we're at and the side that we're on, it's just fantastic. I mean, it's really cool, other than odd playing a college football game in front of 15,000 people. So
all right, that'll take a bit of an adjustment. That seems like one of the themes this week, and I'll ask you about that. But I always love turning the clock back and looking at last week first. I mean, I think we all expected that thing was going to get lopsided. I don't know if I expected 69-3 going in. You've been around this team for a long time against a Power 4 opponent. That was about as thorough a beatdown as we've seen in a long time for the Ducks.
Yeah, that's 2 in a row that they've put together. And again, it's one of those games where I expected them to beat Oklahoma State badly too. I scored 69 on them, including a couple of defensive touchdowns to get there. No way. I just didn't think that happened. In back-to-back weeks, to play the way that they have is really what surprised me. They've been sharp. They've been spot on with what they're doing. They've been prepared. They've come out and they've executed. They've jumped on both teams early on, and that's not always going to happen, but they've done it 2 weeks in a row. They've done exactly what they're supposed to do to the teams that they've played, and they've done it physically too.
Yeah.
And that's beginning to be contagious on this team, which is probably what I'm most excited about. Not the points, not the yards, not the run game, everything else goes with it. It's the blocking, the physicality that's just become contagious on this team, all across the defense and the offense.
Yeah, I mean, you hit it on the head, Jorgie. The downfield blocking in week 1 was such a cool thing to see, and you're wondering, is this going to be the case every week? And, man, was it impressive again last week. Now, you had Will Stein in studio for the Coaches Show this week, and it was a great conversation. For any Duck fan that missed it, go find it, because Will Stein's a great dude, and that guy's going to be a head coach in no time. But he's got so many weapons to work with, and I was talking about this earlier, Jorgie. I think a lot of people came into the year questioning, hey, wide receiver, you're replacing so much, and Evan Stewart is down. How is that going to look? And then you go from the 2 most experienced quarterbacks we have ever seen in the history of college football, not just Oregon, and you're going to a guy with 5 career starts. I would say those guys are passing their tests with flying colors. What has stood out to you from that wide receiver room and the quarterback room? Because this offense is humming on all cylinders right now.
Well, they play like veterans. I mean, that's the thing about it with the receivers. And, some of the guys have played. Gary Bryant, Malik Benson, those guys have played some football, no doubt about it, at a high level. But everybody looks like they've been in the system for 2 or 3 years already. The way that they're in sync, the way that they're playing for each other, the big plays by Decory Moore already. And again, he looks like a guy who's been here for a year and a half. Physically, mentally, he's in the right spot at the right time. And then again, just the blocking of a true freshman like he's done just becomes contagious for everybody else. And then Dante Moore's just been spot on. I mean, you look at, again, what you're talking about, Andy, is all the production that they lost from last year. And right now, so far anyway, until they get into the Big Ten season and Oregon State next week, they haven't missed a beat. And the balance is the biggest piece of that, I think, too, to be able to run and throw the ball equally well. The offensive line is beginning to gel. They still got a ways to go. But, surprisingly, they've been able to do this with a lot of new guys or first-time starters at the positions.
Yeah, it has been so much fun. It's, you see Noah Woodington with the long touchdown run on play 2, and I wasn't getting as many texts in week 2 about where's my guy Hughes. And it was great to see him get some carries and get some run, and he's still a part of this offense. But, man, they got so many weapons right now offensively in the way they can attack you. When you look at the way this defense is built, Jorgie, I kind of notice a different – kind of schematic idea this past weekend, something I haven't seen. They were playing some 3 safety looks, and there was some Dylan Thieneman and Kingston Lopa kind of down in the box, almost similar to what we saw from Caleb Downs against Oregon in the Rose Bowl. I just kind of talk about the versatility of this defense, the way that they're built, and kind of how maybe they're going to evolve as the season goes on.
Well, I love the way that he's moving people around, and again, just adding a wrinkle or 2 or 3, Tosh Lupoy, is to what teams have to prepare for and have to look for and have to come up to the line of scrimmage and see a pre-snap read that all of a sudden on the snap of the ball looks completely different than the pre-snap read did. And even guys like Devin Jackson, you think about last week where he was coming and blitzing from was oftentimes like the inside cover guy, almost like a safety would be on the slot man and on the flanker. And all of a sudden he would show up. He's one of the fastest guys on the team for his size, and he would show up coming out after quarterback. So I just think the multiple looks, of which there's a lot more there, because you're not going to show everything against Montana State and against Oklahoma State. There's a lot more there, but they've already put a lot out there offensively and defensively for teams to prepare for. Think about, I don't want to call them trick plays, but gadget plays that they've already run in the first 2 weeks that you usually save for games like this or Penn State or Oregon State. They've already run them. Now teams have to prepare for them.
Yeah, it's such a good point, Jorgie. I'm glad you brought that up, because that was a takeaway from last week for me, too, of like, it was almost a Will Stein and Tosh Lupoy saying, good luck game planning against us, because we got so many different things that we could do, and the versatility is incredible. Now, we make a lot of noise in the media about the early kick times, and it's a thing in the NFL, right? West Coast teams go to the East Coast. You got a 10 a.m. body clock start. We saw Oregon do this a couple of years ago with Cristobal in Columbus. Is that a thing? Is it a worrisome thing? Early start time? Got to get the body going. Got to bring your own juice. What's your stance on that?
Well, to me, about the only things that I think can really get in the way of Oregon continuing to play like they do is the start time of the game and the venue. I mean, it is an odd venue. It's really neat to see if you're here in person. Not that big, very quaint. The stands in the end zone are bigger than the stands on the sidelines. And again, they're holding 12 to 15,000 people. You just don't see it every day on a beautiful campus, by the way. This is a gorgeous campus sitting right on Lake Michigan. So to me, start time of the game and venue that they're playing in are the only things that can screw it up, because the locker rooms, believe me, don't look like normal locker rooms the way that they've got it set up. It's a little bit odd, but one way, shape, or form, they'll figure out a way to get it done. I just think the way that Dan Lanning has his team focused and the way that they play together, the attitude that they play with, the mentality that they play with, it probably doesn't matter if you played in your backyard, they play the same way.
It seems like that. They're eating out of the palm of his hand right now, which is a great thing when you get that from a team and in the relationship with the coach. Let's talk a little bit about Northwestern. I mean, like we're trying to call a spade here, right? Not a huge step up in competition level. They haven't looked great early and didn't look great a couple of weeks ago on the road at Tulane. But as you circle them, Preston Stone, a starting quarterback, the running backs down. Anything stand out to you about Northwestern and your game prep that you're just kind of keeping an eye on this morning?
Well, I think their linebackers are really good players. Uline in the middle has been a guy that's been here quite a while, one of their star linebackers. And, again, if you're going to stop the run, your linebackers got to be a big part of that. I think with Stone, who has played a lot of football at SMU, I mean, he's a guy that's important to this team, no doubt about it. So goes Stone, so goes the team. And, if he's playing well, great. If he's not playing, they're going to have to figure out some other way to do it. But this is a team, Oregon, that should be able to take care of business here. You just never know what little things are going to play into it. Like I told you before, the venue, the start time, that can throw you off a little bit. But I just think Oregon is so focused right now and so dialed in on what they're doing and how they play, and they just worry about themselves and not really worry about all the external things that can take you out of a game. So.
Yeah. Well, we got to let you go so you can go call a game. But before I do, I missed this part, I think, on the broadcast when I got back. Maybe it's because I was listening to you and Jerry. But they did a feature on CBS last week on Will Stein and I think it's his wife who's making these cakes, and everybody's ordering these cakes. And you and Will Stein were talking about this on Wednesday night on the Coaches Show. So I got to ask first, have you gotten your hands on a cake yet, Jorgie?
I ordered one.
You did?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the orange juice cake. Yeah, I can't wait to try it. And, I can't. I mean, there's two sizes. And, I figured for our group, there's like a 14 to 16 piece. and there's like a 6 to 8. And I figured for this group, Dusty in particular, it's the 14 to 16 piece when they're getting. And I can't wait to try it. I absolutely get so sissy cakes they're called.
Oh,
and it's Will Stein's mom and aunt that own the company website. You can go there. They ship them. They do the whole thing, and obviously he provided that recipe to his wife, and he's been telling her, you got to do it exactly what the recipe says. Don't be trying to, cut half the sugar and put in a little bit more orange juice. Don't do that type of stuff. It's good the way it is. And I think, I'll just tell you right now, if you take a look at the picture of it, I think the glaze is the secret ingredient. Because, it soaks in, and yet it kind of creates that crust that keeps the moisture in. It's the glaze. So, anyhow, sissy cakes.
I knew I would get you going on cakes, Jorgie. I knew I would this morning. I heard you getting all excited the other night. I got to get one of those orders in, too. I'm on my way, man. It looks fantastic. This is obviously always brought to you by Bellagio's Pizza. Score big with their game day special. A large cheese or one topping pizza, small cheese sticks, and a 2-liter, all for only $25. Go to Bellagios.com and find more from their 13 locations near you. Jorgie, have a great call, buddy. Enjoy the view of a beautiful lake on a beautiful morning, and hopefully a 3-0 start. We'll see you next weekend at Otson.
All right, Andy. Thanks a lot.
All right, great stuff from Jorgie. Let's get to what's at stake as we get closer to kickoff between Oregon and Northwestern early this Saturday morning. What's at stake? We're almost done here. We'll send you out to Northwestern here in a matter of moments. Back after this, you got the Ducks pregame show on 105.1 FM The Fan.
Why is Macy's one-day sale the one
on as everything's kind of wrapping up this morning. You got Georgia, Tennessee at 12:30 on ABC. This is a spot, I just don't really know what to make of either team. I came in super high on Georgia going into the year, but their offense has been lethargic, to be polite, here through the first 2 weeks of the season. I mentioned Austin Peay in their game they played last week against them this past weekend. Only 28 points against Austin Peay. Yeah, that's not good. That's not good at all. And Tennessee has looked phenomenal, but they haven't played anybody yet. And can Joey Aguilar win a game like this against a Kirby Smart defense? I like Georgia to win. They have dominated this rivalry. I want to say they've won 8 consecutive games by an average margin of, 30 points per win, if you will. And so Georgia has dominated this game. A big test, though, early on. Georgia was a team coming in with national title hopes. Their offense has not looked the part here early. And Tennessee was a team that we just didn't really know what to make of after losing Nico in the offseason. And Aguilar has looked much better than Nico has at UCLA, to be fair. But again, it hasn't been against the stiffest competition. I think Georgia gets the win on the road this morning. Elsewhere, how about the CW getting maybe the game of the weekend? Who saw that coming when everybody else passed on broadcasting Miami and South Florida? Here comes number 5 versus number 18. We might have the ACC champ against the at-large group of 6 automatic berth into the playoff South Florida Bulls. It's a 17.5-point spread. I think that's a little disrespectful to South Florida. The way that these guys are playing, they went on the road into Florida and won this past weekend. That was a great statement off of their big win against Boise State back in the opening weekend of the season. And so I just think, look, Miami's going to win this game. If they don't, boy, Mario Cristobal is going to have some more questions to answer because he seemingly stubs his toe once or twice every year against a team that he's not supposed to. I think South Florida keeps that one close. Probably not enough to get a win, but I do think they hang around. That's a 130 kick on the CW. And then we'll get 2 more in here before we go and wrap things up on the pregame show. Florida LSU tonight. Billy Napier has been fired 842 times over the last calendar year. Seemingly finds a way to keep his job and not get fired, and then loses a game, and then you're like, hey, this guy should get fired. Speaking of South Florida, they went into Gainesville to beat the Gators last weekend. I think LSU's going to kill him today. I don't have good vibes for Florida. Maybe they're coming out playing angry after losing the game at home to South Florida this last weekend, but LSU had a bit of a lethargic performance this past weekend in their game after their win over Clemson. They're at home. It's a night game in Death Valley. Like, good luck, DJ Lagway. That's a challenging atmosphere. I think LSU runs away with that one. And I feel the same way in Notre Dame, Texas A&M. A&M, ironically, is a team that always gets a lot of preseason hype, and then they disappoint. This year's kind of been the opposite. They didn't get a lot of conversation going into the year. Remember, Texas A&M had a game at the end of the regular season last year that if they would have beaten Texas in the rivalry game, they would have played in the SEC championship. So they had a good year last year, came up just short. Nobody's really talking about them. They're 2-0. Their defense hasn't been great the first 2 weeks of the season. Marcel Reed is a tremendous athlete at the quarterback position. I think Notre Dame has had a week off to lick their wounds from that Miami game. Why do they have a bye in week 2? Who the hell knows the answer to that question? But CJ Carr showed me a lot in the second half of that game. I think Notre Dame wins tonight in South Bend and improves to 1-1 on the season. What's at stake? Brought to you by Laurelhurst Market. More than just your friendly neighborhood steakhouse. Make your reservation today at laurelhurstmarket.com. Our final segment, Line to Watch. Final thoughts on this game. That is coming up next. But now it's time for Ducks Game Day weather every 10 minutes. Here's Jeff Rust.
It is 58, mostly cloudy here in Portland. Clouds will burn off later this morning. Sunny skies today, a high around 80. In Evanston, some early thunderstorms should end. We'll see. Look for cloudy skies around 70 degrees at kickoff and an 11 to 12 mile an hour breeze off of Lake Michigan. I'm Jeff Rust with Ducks Game Day weather every 10 minutes.
Bellagio's Pizza, a Northwest